Level 10, the Director. You are 59 years old. You have just been sworn in, and you now lead an agency older than the country's constitution. You think of the 22-year-old in Glencoe, who could not have imagined this room, and you understand. The whole climb was really one long act of service. But you did not start here. Nobody does. And to understand this badge, you have to go back 37 years, to a sweating young recruit in Georgia. Because every rank between here and there is a decade of your life, and it all begins with an 18-month wait just to get in the door. Level 1, Deputy U.S. Marshal. You are 22. You applied, you waited, and investigators quietly spoke to your neighbors and your old teachers, 18 months from your first application to your first day, and that alone is a test, a slow filter of whether you actually want this life. You train in the Georgia heat, one of 22 in your class, alongside former Marines and cops, all of you being quietly measured every single day. The work is not what films promised you. It is prisoner transport, court security, and serving warrants. The unglamorous machinery that keeps justice moving. You learn that the badge you carry traces all the way back to 1789, older than almost every other law enforcement office in the country. You spend long nights on stakeouts and longer days in courtrooms. And slowly you stop being the recruit and start becoming the deputy. You make mistakes. You learn from them. And the older deputies watch how you carry both, because that is what tells them what you will become. 5 years pass this way, thousands of small, unremarkable duties done right, until one day they tell you that you have earned your first promotion. Level 2, Deputy U.S. Marshal Inspector. You're 27, 5 years in, and the title means you are trusted with the cases that actually matter. You are now part of fugitive investigations, hunting people who do not want to be found, and it demands patience most people simply do not have. You learn to read patterns, phone records, habits, the small human mistakes every fugitive eventually makes, and you learn to wait for exactly the right moment. The hours are brutal, weeks away from home, tracking someone across state lines, and the marriage of more than one colleague quietly falls apart around you. But when the pieces finally align and you close in on a fugitive who thought they had vanished, there's a quiet satisfaction nothing else quite matches. You build a reputation as someone reliable under pressure, the deputy who does not panic, and reputations in this service travel faster than you expect. You testify in court, you protect witnesses, you move dangerous prisoners, and each duty teaches you that the work is really about trust, not action. And after years of proving yourself in the field, they offer you something rarer than a promotion, a title that only the very best deputies ever hold. Level 3, Senior Inspector. You are 31, and this title is not given for time served. It is given for results that others could not deliver. You now lead operations, coordinating teams across regions, tracking the fugitives too dangerous or too clever for a single deputy to handle alone. You are the one who plans the arrest, who decides when the team moves and when it waits, and the weight of those calls now sits entirely on you. One case involves a mid-level figure in a narcotics network, a man who has slipped nets for years, and it becomes the case that defines your reputation. The operation succeeds because you planned it patiently, and word travels upward that you are someone who can be trusted with the difficult things. But leadership changes the work. You spend less time in the field, and more time responsible for the people you send into it, and that trade weighs on you. You learn that every decision you make now travels down through the deputies below you and out into moments you will never personally see. And when a supervisory position opens, one that will pull you fully out of the field, you realize the next step up is also a step away from the work you love. Level 4, Supervisory Deputy U.S. Marshal. You are 36, and for the first time your deputies carry your decisions into rooms you are not standing in. You are responsible now for a whole district's operations, for budgets, for schedules, and for the safety of every deputy whose name is on your roster. The job is less about chasing fugitives, and more about making sure the machine runs, that the right deputy is in the right place at the right time. You discover that leadership is mostly invisible, that when you do it well, nothing dramatic happens, and nobody thanks you for the disasters that never occur. When something goes wrong on an operation, it is your name on the report, your decision under review, and you learn to carry that exposure without flinching. You mentor younger deputies now, seeing your own early mistakes in them, and you realize the service continues only because each generation teaches the next. The higher you climb, the more the work becomes about people and less about pursuit, and you have to decide whether that is a life you truly want. You decide it is, because someone has to hold the structure together, and after years of steady leadership, they call you in for another conversation. Level 5, Chief Deputy U.S. Marshal. You are 41, and you are now the senior career deputy of an entire district, the one everyone below answers to. The presidentially appointed marshal sits above you, but they come and go with administrations, while you are the constant, the one who truly runs the district. You manage dozens of deputies, coordinate with other agencies, and answer for everything that happens in your district, good or bad, without exception. The pressure is relentless and mostly invisible, and you have long since stopped expecting anyone outside the service to understand what you actually do. You have given nearly 20 years to this badge now, and the young recruit sweating in Georgia feels like a different person entirely, almost a stranger. But you would not trade it, because you have seen the difference the structure makes. The witnesses kept safe, the fugitives caught, the courts kept running. Your name is now known at the national level, spoken in the headquarters in Virginia, and that recognition opens a door very few deputies ever reach. They ask whether you would consider a presidential appointment to become the United States Marshal of a district, and you understand what it means to say yes. Level 6, United States Marshal. You are 45, and this is no longer a promotion you earn quietly. It requires a formal Senate confirmation hearing. You sit before senators and answer for your entire career, every decision, every case, because this rank is a public trust, not just an internal one. Confirmed, you are now the president's appointed marshal for your district, the ceremonial and legal head of an office that predates the nation itself. The role is part leadership and part symbol. You represent the service to the courts, to the public, and to every other agency you work beside. You carry the authority of the office everywhere now, but you also carry its history, a badge unbroken since 1789, and that is a heavy thing. You have reached a height most deputies only imagine, and you could stop here content, having given the service more than most people give anything. But the national headquarters has been watching how you lead, and there's a different kind of role there, away from any single district over the whole service. They ask you to come to Virginia, to help run the entire United States Marshal Service from the top, and once again you say yes to the harder path. Level 7, Assistant Director of the Witness Security Division. You are 49, and you now oversee one of the most secretive programs in the country. This is the program that gives witnesses entirely new lives, and not one protected witness who followed the rules has ever been lost. A record you must protect. The responsibility is immense and utterly invisible. Real families depend on your program working flawlessly, forever, without a single public acknowledgement. You spend your days on logistics most people would never imagine. New identities, relocations, the quiet machinery that keeps vanished people permanently safe. You rarely see the people you protect. You only see the absence of disaster, the quiet proof each morning that the system held for one more night. It is the purest version of the lesson the whole service taught you, that the most important work is the kind that never makes the news at all. And your steadiness with the most sensitive work in the service marks you for one of the few remaining seats at the very top of the organization. Level 8, Associate Director for Operations. You're 53, one of only 2 associate directors, and now the entire operational service runs through you. Every district, every division, every operation across the country ultimately connects to your desk, and the scale of it would overwhelm your younger self. You no longer think about individual arrests. You think about systems, about whether the whole structure can hold under pressure it was never designed for. You spend your time in meetings with other agency heads, in budget fights, in the slow grinding work of keeping a 200-year-old institution functioning. It is a long way from a car on a stakeout at night, and sometimes you miss that simpler work. But you understand now why this level has to exist. And when the second highest career position in the entire service opens, your name is one of the very few in the country even considered for it. You realize you are now further from the badge's origins in the field than you ever imagined possible, and yet closer than ever to what it truly protects. Level 9 Deputy Director. You're 56, and this is the highest permanent career position in the service, the professional peak of a lifetime's work. Above you sits only the director, a political appointment that changes with administrations, which means in practice, you are the one who keeps the ship steady. You have spent your whole life becoming the person the entire service can rely on. And now, thousands of careers and countless lives quietly depend on your judgment. You could retire now with honor, your work complete, but instead you are asked to consider the one seat still above you, the political summit of it all. They ask if you will let your name go forward to be director, and after 37 years, you decide to finish the climb you began as a recruit in Georgia. The younger deputies look at you the way you once looked at the senior inspectors, as someone who has simply always been part of the furniture of the service. You have watched directors come and go, administrations rise and fall, and through all of it, you have been the steady hand that kept the standard from slipping. Level 10, the Director. You are 59, Senate confirmed and sworn in, and you now lead the entire United States Marshal Service from the very top. The recruit who sweated through the Georgia heat is now the person every deputy in the country ultimately answers to, and the distance still amazes you. But at this height, you learn the final lesson, that the service does not exist to produce moments of visible triumph, but to prevent invisible failure every day. Every court that runs, every witness kept safe, every prisoner moved without incident, is a quiet success that no headline will ever report or celebrate. You carry a badge that traces back to 1789, and you understand at last that it is not about you. It never was. It is about the structure holding. So every morning you give the same answer to the same standard, you sign the next authorization, you read the next briefing, and you keep the whole thing holding. From a recruit in the Georgia heat to the director of a service older than the country itself, this was the climb, and holding it steady was always the whole point.